Welcome to Celestial Bodies, a place to wonder in awe about the planets above. So in this week's astrology, what I've chosen to focus on are two trines that are happening in the sky between sort of three different planets. And so the nature of trines is harmony, or a kind of free flow. You can almost imagine a trine is like taking away a barrier of sorts and allowing something to flow. It's also, it makes me think of, with the trine, the reason why the planets are in trine is because they are in the same element. So they share a sort of an understanding with each other. So obviously when you share an understanding with each other, the conversation flows, the energy flows, the feeling of yes, sort of flows. So that's another sort of nature of the trine. So this week, the first trine that I want to talk about is a trine between the planet Mars in Cancer, the planet Venus in Scorpio, and the planet Saturn, just move this up slightly, in Pisces. So all of these planets are in like a sort of grand water trine. So they're watery and they're emotional. So yeah, the two trines we have going on are one trine in water and then another trine in air. So some of the themes of this week are to do with our emotions and also to do with our communication. So let's first dive into this water trine. Water, as a symbol, is deeply connected to emotions, and it's making me think about the work of Dr. Masaru, I think his name is Masaru Emoto. I love that his name is actually Emoto as well. I think that's cool. Yeah, he did this like fascinating work on water consciousness. And his research demonstrated that water is shaped by its environment, thoughts and emotions. And our bodies, we are about 65% water, are similarly affected by emotions and energetic vibrations around us. So with this grand water trine, kind of at the heart of this week, it's important, I think, to reflect on how our emotional waters are being shaped. So with the planets we have involved in this are Mars and Venus, and to a degree Saturn. So the trine with Saturn is actually a waning one, so there's sort of, both of these planets are moving away from Saturn, but Saturn is still kind of, is where it's sort of come from. And so there are different ways we could look at these planets, and we could kind of turn these planets and think about how the archetype and the feeling of these, the symbol of these planets could play out. And so I might look at kind of maybe 4 different ways in which we could look at that. The first way is that this trine with the Mars-Venus trine is actually exact today. So maybe that's a flow of what we desire and what we love, in a sense. There's this flow of energy between these two places. But you know, Mars and Venus are very opposite places. So there's a real sort of kinetic energy to this. And with Saturn also in the mix, it could also manifest as kind of like anger or even slight frustration in love, experiencing frustration in something that you care about, or that powerful energy turning into a very sort of disciplined desire. It could be setting boundaries in love, saying no because it aligns with your higher values. It could also be emotional release and control, emotional outbursts returned, followed by a return to sort of composure and perspective. It's all together making me feel like we should just be conscious of our emotions and the role in which we can play in shaping the water and allowing it to flow or crash. That there's a sense in which emotions are going to flow, and that could be angry emotions or like just there's a fluidity in our emotional space, and maybe it's about allowing that, not repressing it, and yet understanding that we can play a part in the sort of transmutation of energy, the transmutation of, say, an emotion like anger. Maybe it's that we have to allow it to flow and pass. It's sort of making me think of something that I encourage sometimes in the practice of yoga, where you come out of a pose and poses can actually create a big energetic sensation through your system, and that you allow it to happen. You allow yourself to feel it and be with it and notice it pass. So all of that to say is just remembering, like water, we're influenced by the energy that we expose ourselves to, and this trine may be encouraging us to be mindful of the environments and emotions shaping us. And it's not that you shouldn't feel the intensity of the world's challenges right now, far from it, but amidst the waves there is still this need to nurture and love, and practice hope and beauty at the same time. So as the week this is taking, so I like this kind of barnacled shell for the Mars in Cancer. I'm going to talk about Mars in Cancer more because Mars is going to do its retrograde in Cancer this year, so I feel like we should do a deep dive on Mars in Cancer at some point. So the other trine that is present this week is this trine between, this is coming off maybe some of it later in the week, but actually today we have a trine between Jupiter and Mercury. So Jupiter and Mercury are today at 21 degrees of Libra for Mercury and Gemini for Jupiter, and this is an air trine. So I think that was part of the reason why I was talking about in that water trine, our thoughts are important as well. And this trine is more about the thoughts, it's more about the intellect, it's more about the information world. And so Jupiter and Gemini's, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of perspectives, multiples, so many multiples. And then Mercury in Libra at the moment is sort of looking to balance, to be sort of diplomatic in a sense. And so this feels like a nice trine this week. And it's also an interesting week for Jupiter because Jupiter will actually station retrograde this week. From now until, I think it is, just let me check, Jupiter will be retrograde from October the 9th until February the 4th. So it's a long period of Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. And when I was thinking of this Jupiter retrograde, it actually made me think of the Hermit card in tarot, because it kind of gives you a bit of a visual interpretation of what the planet's doing in the sky. So when Jupiter is direct, it's the zodiac is made up of a circle, and how we sort of bring it down from the sky to think about it on our kind of 3D terms. It's a circle with the zodiac going sort of anti-clockwise in a sense. So the planets are always moving through the zodiac in this sort of anti-clockwise direction on the circle, as if the Hermit was walking straight ahead. But when a planet goes retrograde, it actually appears to be moving backwards in the sky, and then it's actually following the more natural rising of the sun in the east and the sun going down in the west. So it follows that. It's more being taken by that wave rather than it's going its own way. So when a planet is going retrograde and it's being sort of taken backwards in the zodiac, it's a time of more where the energy might be reflected more inwards, where your outward going plans or will, or even the will of the planet itself, is being taken by the wave of the kind of more diurnal, like rising of the sun and falling of the sun. It's been taken by this wave, and so it has somewhat of a hermit feel of, because in the card the Hermit, it's thought of that the Hermit's actually kind of moving backwards, and so it's this moment of a sort of more internal search, perhaps, of the forward sort of what Jupiter's looking for is kind of like a sense of structure and a sense of learning and philosophy, and so maybe that whatever Jupiter's been doing in your life so far, there's now going to be this more rethink, and because Jupiter's in an air sign and Mercury, it's this kind of rethink of maybe thoughts and beliefs around, you know, all sorts of different subjects, because everybody, this will be happening in a different part of their chart. But the Jupiter retrograde at the same time as this trine to Mercury feels quite nice, and also at the end of the week Jupiter will also trine the Sun and the Moon. So Jupiter's going retrograde at the moment of it is in amongst these trines to Mercury, the planet ruling Jupiter at the moment, because Mercury rules the sign of Gemini, and so there might be a lot of reflection or thought about your belief systems or your structures or your kind of moral code, and you might there's a sort of turning point and an inner reflection into this to this moment before we then move back forward when Jupiter goes direct next year. And then in this, it's bringing to me this trine at the moment is offering this hope of maybe taking in multiple perspectives, Jupiter and Gemini, and maybe finding the balance or the way to communicate justice and fairness, Mercury and Libra. And then when the moon comes into this, the moon will actually come into the sun's in this trine, so the sun is kind of like the kind of like the warmth or the will. And then when the moon also comes into this trine, and the moon will be in Aquarius, it's kind of giving me this more moon in Aquarius, more kind of detached, broader outlook, helping us to process and kind of make sense of things from maybe slightly a higher perspective. So yeah, I'm feeling that the trine here is urging us to take the watery wave of our emotions and combine it with the way in which we see the world, the way in which our intellect is seeing the world, and that maybe this is going to be a lot of inner reflection to sort of find that sense of balance. But this Jupiter retrograde starting point feels hopeful in a sense, because Jupiter is a planet of hope and belief in a kind of in the highest way to do things. That sort of, some of the words here just jumping out at me, like philosophy and faith and higher education. I mean, what is that all for? But this hope for a sort of an expansive and optimistic way of living. And so it feels to me that all of us in our different journeys will be, that's obviously the most optimistic outlook, but all of us in our different journeys will be going on this emotional but also maybe sort of intellectual and belief system way of, and it might be a very internal journey because of the, you know, that kind of hermit going backwards of I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to, of how we find a way to find clarity in our communication and I suppose that word's jumping out at me, harmony. So yeah, that's the astrology of the week. There are another couple of things that did jump out of me, that Mars is squaring Mercury and the Sun as well. And so I don't think this week is without conflict, but I think I wanted to focus on well, that work of the Doctor Emoto, that it's really powerful in what you're exposing your water to, in a sense. So thank you for joining me for this week's astrology. I went a little rambly this week. I hope it made sense. And I'm just wishing everyone the best week that you can have, and to find the beauty, finding the way in which you create beauty in the world, and the way in which you connect and create these little local moments of sort of kindness around you. So I hope to see you next week, and as ever, please like, subscribe, share, give me a comment, and I will, and join my Instagram if you're not already on my Instagram. It's just my name, Sarah Gordon, on Instagram, where I sometimes dance on there. I do my moon moves, although I've not done them in a little while, but I share little astrological insights as they come to me, and I will see you next week. Bye.